So in the last 20 years, not going back decades further.
And that is correct. When Barack Obama entered office, he was left with a 7.8% unemployment rate, which is significantly higher than the 6.4% unemployment rate than the Biden-Harris administration started out with.
This was a staggeringly dishonest debate performance, just lie after lie on subject after subject.
Oh, for sure. During the debate, Kamala Harris lied about the economy, job growth, abortion, foreign policy, our military, January 6th, Charlottesville, the Central Park Five. The lying never stopped.
By my preliminary count, Jake, Trump made at least 33 false claims, 33. By contrast, by, again, a preliminary count, Vice President Harris made at least one false claim.
What? So since Daniel Dale isn't going to properly fact-check Kamala's debate claims, I guess it's up to me, the top senior political analyst on YouTube.
Let's talk about fracking because we're here in Pennsylvania. I made that very clear in 2020.
Kamala Harris has made this claim before. It was a lie then, and it's still a lie. During her recent CNN interview, Harris was asked about her stance on fracking.
When you were in Congress, you supported the Green New Deal. And in 2019, you said, quote, "There is no question I'm in favor of banning fracking." Do you still want to ban fracking?
No, and I made that clear on the debate stage in 2020, that I would not ban fracking. As vice president, I did not ban fracking. As president, I will not ban fracking.
But in reality, she never actually said that during the 2020 vice presidential debate.
Joe Biden will not end fracking. He has been very clear about that. I will repeat, and the American people know, that Joe Biden will not ban fracking. That is a fact. That is a fact.
So for clarity, Kamala Harris didn't say that she wouldn't ban fracking. She said that Joe Biden wouldn't. So if she's going to lie about that, she'll lie about everything. And ironically, Daniel Dale fact-checked Harris on this just 2 weeks prior.
The fact-check bottom line, Abby, is that she did not actually make clear at a 2020 debate that she had changed her previous support for a fracking ban.
So if you're a fact-checker who watched the debate and only caught one lie from Kamala Harris, it means that you're either completely incompetent at your job and or a liar.
We have had the largest increase in domestic oil production in history.
Yeah, another lie. According to the United States Energy Information Administration, when Donald Trump entered office in January 2017, U.S. oil production was nearly 8.9 million barrels a day. Within 3 years, it was at 12.85 million, which is a 44% increase. When Joe Biden entered office, production was at nearly 11.2 million barrels a day. 3 years later, it was 12.5 million. That is a 12.6% increase. Also, peak oil production under Trump hit 12.9 million barrels a day in December 2019. Under Biden, the highest daily production rate was 13.2 million barrels a day in April 2024. That's only 1.6% higher than Trump. Are you impressed yet? In other words, no matter how you slice it, there was not a historic increase in oil production under the Biden-Harris administration.
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America.
However, it needs to be pointed out that the highest trade deficit in American history was under the Biden-Harris administration.
He invited trade wars. You want to talk about his deal with China? What he ended up doing is under Donald Trump's presidency, he ended up selling American chips to China to help them improve and modernize their military, basically sold us out when a policy about China should be in making sure the United States of America wins the competition for the 21st century.
The Trump administration did no such thing. The National Review writes, "It will not surprise you to learn that Harris's accusation isn't completely accurate. As president, Trump and his administration took several steps to prevent China from acquiring advanced American-made chips." The National Review would then go on to list several examples of this. In other words, no, the United States did not sell American chips to China and their military. Kamala Harris is essentially calling President Trump a traitor, and she wasn't fact-checked on it. I know you're shocked.
I am offering what I describe as an opportunity economy, and the best economists in our country, if not the world, have reviewed our relative plans for the future of America. What Goldman Sachs has said is that Donald Trump's plan would make the economy worse. Mine would strengthen the economy.
But that's not what Goldman Sachs said. Here's CEO David Solomon on CNBC.
So that report, which was mentioned last night in the debate, came from an independent analyst. And it's interesting, Scott. I think a lot more has been made of this than should be. What the report did is it looked at a handful of policy issues that have been put out by both sides, and it tried to model their impact on GDP growth. The reason I say a bigger deal has been made of it is what it showed is the difference between the sets of policies that they put forward was about 0.2%. Okay, so economy grows. Okay, if you took these particular sets of policies they looked at, and by the way, we have no idea whether these policies, these things that are talked about, will ultimately be implemented. What was the growth impact? The differential was 0.2%.
But then the very next day, even after the CEO of Goldman set the record straight, Kamala went in front of a bust-in audience in North Carolina and again lied about what was in the report.
Goldman Sachs, for example, had said that my plan would grow our economy and his plan would shrink the economy.
Again, an independent analyst at Goldman Sachs found that there would be a difference in growth by 0.2%. Instead, she's making up.
Independent economists like Goldman Sachs have said my plan would grow our economy and his plan would shrink the economy, reignite inflation, and send us into a recession by the middle of next year.
That's not what the report says. She is lying. Where's the fact check, Daniel Dale? Where is the fact check?
We have created over 800,000 new manufacturing jobs while I have been vice president.
Nope, another lie. From January 2021 to August 2024, the United States has created 739,000 manufacturing jobs total. However, only 202,000 of those jobs are new manufacturing jobs. I would also like to point out that since October 2022, job growth in manufacturing has been non-existent.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th. I was the vice president-elect. I was also an acting senator. I was there. And on that day, the President of the United States incited a violent mob to attack our nation's capital, to desecrate our nation's capital. On that day, 140 law enforcement officers were injured, and some died.
First of all, not a single law enforcement officer or Capitol Police officer died on January 6th. Where is the fact check, Daniel? Second, Vice President-elect Harris was not present at the Capitol building during the J6 riot. According to reporting by the Washington Post, the day of the mob attack on the Capitol, Harris had received an intelligence briefing in the morning and had not returned to the Senate before rioters broke in. She was kept away from the Capitol until the facility was secured.
I was at the Capitol on January 6th.
And for further verification, the Department of Justice, in a November 2021 court filing, wrote, Vice President Harris was not present at that particular time, though she was present earlier in the day and was present later that day.
Let's remember that when it came to the Proud Boys, a militia, the former president said, stand back and stand by.
A, the Proud Boys are not a militia. B, what exactly does she think stand back and stand by means? Attack? But for context and clarity, here's the exchange between Donald Trump and Chris Wallace.
But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
are you
I'm willing
prepared
to do
specifically
that, but
do it? Well,
I would say almost everything I see is from the left wing, not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
Then do it, sir.
Say it. Do it. Say it. Do you want to call them? What do you want to call them? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name.
supremacists and
Who would
white
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand back and stand by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left.
So Chris Wallace demanded that Trump condemn the Proud Boys and tell them to stand down and not add to violence, because, that's the job of a presidential debate moderator. But then Trump complied to that request. Kamala Harris and the Democrats love to twist Trump's words around into something that it's not. And yet, no fact check from the media.
But this is not an isolated situation. Let's remember Charlottesville, where there was a mob of people carrying tiki torches, spewing anti-Semitic hate. And what did the president then at the time say? There were fine people on each side.
And here we go, spreading the Nazis are fine people hoax. This has been a lie that Democrats have been spreading for more than 7 years. Of all the things that Kamala Harris lied about at the debate, this is the one that was easiest to fact check, Daniel, you hack.
Let's remember, this is the same individual who took out a full-page ad in the New York Times calling for the execution of 5 young Black and Latino boys who were innocent, the Central Park 5. Took out a full-page ad calling for their execution.
No, he didn't. Here is the ad in black and white. Go ahead, read it in its entirety. In the ad, Donald Trump called for bringing back the death penalty in New York State for criminals that murder. It does not mention the Central Park Five by name, nor does it call for their execution, especially considering that A, they were never accused of murder, and B, since they were teenagers, they wouldn't have been eligible for the death penalty in the first place. And here's a challenge. Show me exactly where Trump called for the Central Park Five's execution in this ad, and I will delete my YouTube channel. Good luck, fact checkers.
Donald Trump, the candidate, has said in this election there will be a bloodbath if this and the outcome of this election is not to his liking.
Yeah, an economic bloodbath if China is allowed to sell their cheap-ass electric vehicles here, not the violent bloodbath that Kamala is insinuating.
He said of Putin that he can do whatever the hell he wants and go into Ukraine.
Even the Washington Post admitted Trump did not make this statement in the context of an invasion of Ukraine. In fact, Trump did not issue any invitation to invade U.S. allies.
He admires dictators, wants to be a dictator on day one, according to himself.
Spoiler alert, he was joking.
He says, "You're not going to be a dictator, are you?" I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border, and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator, okay?
That sounds to me like you're going back to the policies when you were president. All right.
So yes, Trump was making a joke, which proves the Democrats have absolutely no sense of humor.
These dictators and autocrats are rooting for you to be president again because they're so clear. They can manipulate you.
But Vladimir Putin, a dictator, isn't rooting for Trump. In fact, he just endorsed Kamala Harris. Womp womp. But of course, the media was lightning quick to suggest that Putin was being sarcastic. Putin appeared to suggest jokingly that he would support Harris in the upcoming US election. Vladimir Putin, the dictator? He was joking. He actually loves Trump. And no, Trump was not joking when he said that he would be a dictator on day one, because, you have to take his words at face value. Words matter.
And then this business about taking everyone's guns away. Tim Walz and I are both gun owners. We're not taking anybody's guns away, so stop with the continuous lying about this stuff.
But when she ran for president the first time, she vowed to implement mandatory buybacks, i.e., take your guns away. Here's Kamala on Jimmy Fallon.
Do you believe in the mandatory buyback of quote-unquote assault weapons? And whether or not you do, how does that idea not go against fundamentally the Second Amendment?
I do believe that we need to do buybacks, and I'll tell you why. A buyback program is a good idea. Now, we need to do it the right way. And part of that has to be, to buy back and give people their value, the financial value of what they have, and not just take things from people that have value. When elected, if Congress fails to act, I'll give them 100 days to put a bill on my desk for signature. And if they do not do it, I will put in place by executive action a comprehensive background check requirement and a ban on the assault weapons and importation of assault weapons into our country. I'm done.
So using executive action to stomp on your constitutional right to own a firearm kind of sounds like something a dictator would do.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century.
So this genius, the current vice president, by the way, wants to be the commander-in-chief, but doesn't know that we have U.S. troops in combat zones. I mean, on the day of the debate, U.S. Central Command put out a press release reporting that U.S. forces took out Houthi drones and missile systems that presented a clear and imminent threat to U.S. and coalition forces that are protecting merchant vessels in the Red Sea and the Gulf of Aden from attack. And of course, there's this clip that went viral.
And as of today, there is not one member of the United States military who is in active duty in a combat zone in any war zone around the world, the first time this century. What? But let's understand.
So where the are we right now?
And finally, we hit on Kamala Harris's favorite thing to talk about in the whole wide world, abortion.
If Donald Trump were to be reelected, he will sign a national abortion ban. Understand, in his Project 2025, there would be a national abortion, a monitor that would be monitoring your pregnancies, your miscarriages.
First of all, it's not Trump's Project 2025. Second, Project 2025 doesn't even say that. Kamala Harris and the Democrats are making it all up. But great fact check, Daniel Dale. You're doing God's work. Third, Trump has repeatedly said that the abortion issue is now with the states, and that Congress wouldn't have the votes to put a national abortion ban in place, let alone do what Kamala wants to do.
Well, there she goes again. It's a lie. I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban. What she says is an absolute lie. And as far as the abortion ban, no, I'm not in favor of abortion ban, but it doesn't matter because this issue has now been taken over by the states.
And this was one of Trump's best attacks on Harris. There's not a chance in hell that there will be 60 votes in the Senate for a President Kamala Harris to be able to codify Roe v. Wade into law. it would be an overpromise if it wasn't a blatant lie.
Would you veto a national abortion ban if it came
Well,
to
I
your
won't
desk?
have to because, again, two things. Number one, she said she'll go back to Congress. She'll never get the vote. It's impossible for her to get the vote, especially now with the 50-50, essentially 50-50 in both Senate and the House. She's not going to get the vote. She can't get the vote. She won't even come close to it. So it's just talk. Will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
What do you mean, come on, Kamala? 9 states, plus Washington, D.C., have zero restriction on abortion bans.
Why don't you ask her
Why-
that question?
why don't you
That's
answer
the
the
problem.
question, would you
Because
veto?
under Roe v. Wade,
Answer the question, would you veto?
But he did answer the question about the veto, Kamala.
I'm not signing a ban, and there's no reason to sign a ban.
Then Trump told an inconvenient truth.
You could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth.
And Trump is right. Under Roe v. Wade, state abortion restrictions were illegal. Kamala Harris wants to put those protections back in place.
Would you support any restrictions on a woman's right to an abortion?
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. Nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
And what's absolutely insulting is the fact that Kamala Harris cannot and will not answer the question. In reality, monsters like her want abortion on demand with zero restrictions, and at the same time claim that, oh, there's no need for those restrictions because late-term abortions never happen, even though organizations like the Kaiser Family Foundation admit that this happens thousands of times a year. And what's most insulting are news outlets claiming that Kamala Harris isn't a liar. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time, if there is next time.